Hello, everyone, and welcome to our very first puzzle update. I think that's what we're calling this. It's sort of we don't really know. It's sort of a dev chat, like very casual place for players and people that like this game to know a little bit more information about us and about the game, and more also get an in-depth understanding about what we're doing with the game, how we're developing it, the reasons behind all those things, and also have an opportunity to ask questions and we can answer them. So today we're only starting with two of the developers, two of the five, so yeah, let's introduce ourselves. This is Shahyar Shahrabi, otherwise known as Shah on Discord, and Shah is our art director, programmer, graphics programmer as well. What else am I missing?
Game designer.
Game designer,
Basically.
of course.
Yeah.
Lead. Shah, I mean, maybe give a little bit of a background on yourself. Like, how did you end up here? And why are we
Yeah,
working on
so
this?
yeah, as Azad said, I did most of the game design in the game and some of the programming. We have actually more programmers as well, and the art direction. And we also have another colleague who helps also with the art direction. And I started in realities, working on VR stuff, mostly interested in the tech itself. But I come from a gaming background, and I was always kind of interested in gamifying some of the things that realities had and some of the assets that we had, let's say, access to. And that's at some point also, as we started working on the game, that was like one of my first game project in realities, which is now what we are mostly doing at the moment with a team of 5. There are still some other colleagues who are working on other aspects of the photogrammetry, but this is mostly done what reality is doing at the moment.
Yeah, we have a few people that aren't working directly on puzzling places, but are part of the greater realities.io team. But yeah, 5 people work on puzzling places. We have, I think, 2 to 3 people, 2 to 3 people that work on general photogrammetry things. Yeah, we'd love to introduce everyone at some point over the next couple of weeks and months. Like, I think this is going to be our first ever event. We're just going to keep it tight to around puzzling places, like version 1.1, and also some Patreon updates. But yeah, hopefully later on, depending on what you guys think and what you want, yeah, we'd love to do more events like this. And yeah, so introduce myself. Yeah, I'm Azad Balabanyan, otherwise known as Wizard of Oz on Discord. And I work on all the puzzles, on all the photogrammetry, the 3D scans, basically, and how these puzzles are made. I do a lot of the marketing, and I was doing a lot of the Patreon work. Um, and so nowadays, yeah, I'm just doing a lot of puzzles, working on our DLC that's coming soon. Maybe we'll talk about that later on, but yeah, this has been quite a journey getting the game to where it is today. If you guys are interested, by the way, about the history and sort of like what Shaw mentioned about this sort of happy little accident that happened, let us know. We'd love to maybe do a whole episode where we kind of talk about how that happened. Maybe even show some older, unreleased things about the game. You know, old earlier versions, and sort of show sort of where we came from. Who knows? Let us know. So there's a chat. There's a channel called Event Chat and Q&A right above the live stage that we created. Go ahead and just type in there. That we'll just think of that as like Twitch chat. We'll be reading that, and later after we do the updates, we'll do a Q&A, and we can take you guys' questions there. So let's dive into update version 1.1. This is the first ever update since we launched the game. We in fact have a long update before that, before the game came out, of course, with the beta. But this is the first one for the full game. The main feature that we are excited about is the Repacker Tool. This was actually something that was suggested by a few of you that both we were working on, but also helped us sort of shape it into what it is. Shah, why don't you tell us a little bit more about this? And you'll also give us a live demo from.
Yeah, I'm going to give a live demo in a second. So usually when you get around the release, there's a long process of QA where the platform then checks if the game is good enough. And during this time, majority of the team was focusing on the release stuff. And we had a bit of like time to do something. And there were 2 features that we wanted to do. One is the marker for scale down, which was actually supposed to be in the final game, but didn't have enough time. And the repacker was just something that was small enough to fit in that window. And that's done what I have been mostly working on in the past few weeks since we went gold. So yeah, I'm going to share my screen. If you could join on that. I actually had to be extra careful that my Unreal is not showing any of the locations that have not been announced or puzzles that are not to be shown. Hopefully, I do not make a blunder there. But this is the editor of the engine we are using, the Unreal Engine, and there you see all our files, which is not really relevant for now.
You haven't streamed. You haven't streamed yet, by the way.
I haven't streamed yet.
Yeah.
Then let me see. I am streaming.
Oh, sorry. It didn't notify me. Here we go.
Okay. So yeah, I'm going to start and hope that Unreal is not going to crash, which is not all that rare.
Here we go. Nice. It worked.
So what you're seeing there is missing the menu for you, because the menu is then kind of like copy pasted on the screen after everything else is rendered. And the Windows doesn't know about it because it happens in the Oculus Quest itself.
Yeah.
So yeah, the main problem that I wanted to solve was, after a while of puzzling, this is a 400-piece puzzle, the Japanese storefront. Well, I think we changed the name to something else. We had what is it called now?
The Kushiyaki restaurant.
Exactly. Internally known as Japanese storefront.
In fact, the save game for the puzzle also still has the original name, which we didn't change. We didn't realize until after we shipped the game.
Yeah, if you want to see, if you want to get secret information from a puzzle, you can look at the save game. It's usually like Biarritz version like 8. So you also see a bit of the iteration we do on these. So what we have there is Japanese 400-piece puzzle, and yes, that. And then what happens after a while is, as you can see, there's a lot of like missing pieces, and in the next tabs as well. By the way, you also see the tab animation here, which was something we always wanted to add, but didn't have time for it. And in this very small period, since I was doing animation for the Repacker, we decided to give that a go too. So yeah, basically when you're here and then you would like to have everything as densely packed as possible, you just click there and it does that for you across all the tabs. I love, I mean, that's good for the art director. I love things organized and I love to have things geometrically shaped. So this was a very pleasing thing to work on. You can already see that the 4th tab has nothing in it anymore because it's not necessary. Actually, I haven't paused anything. Obviously, everything is back here, which was as preparation. That was kind of like the idea behind it and how it started. How I ended up using it, though, was a bit different. So what I do nowadays is when I get into a puzzle, I spend the first 35 minutes just organizing pieces until nothing is in the shelf anymore and everything's in groups. That speeds up the puzzling massively. If you ever want to do a speed run, that's a good way to go really fast. And the good thing with the Repacker is, after the Repacker was done, I basically never go to a different tab again. From once in a while, I just press that and I get new pieces, and there I see, oh, okay, that goes there and this goes here. So I'm really happy about that. Kind of like accident, but I guess it just allows for more player style, different playing style if you wanted so. So one thing that as we started user testing, an issue popped up, and that was, for me, when I'm puzzling, after a while, I have my stuff here, and I don't want to lose those groups, right? So back in the days, it used to be that anything that's in the middle would then be moved to the side. That's why right now, whatever is in the middle of the first tab is going to remain in the middle of the first tab. The only thing that it's going to do is going to sort them and move them up. So what you're going to get is the group with the most amount of pieces is going to go center top, and gradually groups that have less pieces. So if you have a group that has only 2 pieces, that would then, that would go there to the right, exactly. And that's the same thing with a connected piece. So it's going to be quite a crusade right now for me to connect casually 2 pieces together in a 400-piece puzzle. So I cannot show that. But you just take my word for it that if you have a bigger connected piece with more pieces inside, it will be sorted there. There is an inconsistency in the behavior, unfortunately. So if I push that here in the second and the third tab, it's not going to do that. It's just going to empty it and move it to the next free space, which is probably going to be somewhere around here. Just probably move it somewhere at the end. Yeah, the reason for that is in the future, we might do something with the center area where the center area doesn't move with the tabs. So you can have a section where you can just put things that you want to kind of store for whatever use you want. However, we still haven't had the time to do it. and I'm still not sure. I keep saying that in Discord, it kind of feels like a broken record, but it's a very small team, and even having a meeting about this is basically beyond the scope of what they can do in the coming 3 weeks. We always have this already planned out.
It's true. Honestly, every time you guys ask us certain questions and we just don't know, we're pretty honest about that. Like we haven't either made a decision about it or that we're working on it, or we always take your suggestions into consideration. But like part of it is we are a very small team. We have to prioritize, and sometimes we just don't know.
Yeah, so that's basically the Repacker. It's a fun little tool. I'm already loving it, and one of our goals updating from now on is always to make sure we don't break the gameplay. We don't break something that's already there. So you would see a lot of updates like this, which is something additionally on top, which you can if you don't want to use it, that's perfectly fine. You can also not use it.
Right.
That's gonna be our philosophy moving forward.
Shah, question from Grumpy was asking about the middle section staying the same. So that is true. Is like when you switch tabs, the middle is essentially not part of the shelf itself, correct?
Not at the moment, but that's going to be that's my goal at some point to implement right now. At the moment, you have each tab has its own middle section, so you can push to it. It's not a problem. It's just that the Repacker treats the middle section of the first tab special as a place it's not supposed to touch, but everything else it kind of like makes sure that it goes back to the initial configuration we had.
Got it.
But again, in the future, it's something I would love to have, that the middle section is kind of like a thing of its own. It doesn't switch tabs. There are some difficulties with it. For example, we have to visualize it better. If that's the case, we're already thinking of visualizing the shelf a bit better in the future. So, stuff like that. So it's going to be a bit of work. And we have some more exciting stuff we're working on, which I think is going to bring a lot more value to the players than tiny changes. But we cannot announce those yet. So it would be done when we can, announce them.
Nice.
So, should I move on to the next stuff, or
yeah,
do you want to?
So the next thing is I turned off my screen sharing to help with the bandwidth and whatnot. But the next thing is the marker. This is part of the tweaks and improvements. It's not, let's say, a full-on feature like game feature like the Repacker was. But what is the marker, Shah? Maybe you can show us an example.
Yeah, for that, I suppose I have to go to a different puzzle because, again, 400-piece puzzle, I'm not that good. Let's see.
By the way, that was a new sound effect. Also,
that was a new sound effect, and I see that I already deleted. Oh, I can just do 25 pieces. This, yeah. I was like, God, I deleted 25 pieces ice cream stairs, which is always my test puzzle. So, core issue is in the past, let's say, since this update, I have been always avoiding putting larger connected pieces in the group because I always lose them. You would think that it looks different enough that you would be like, oh, that's that giant castle that has been scaled down. But for whatever reason, I can barely tell the difference between them. So these markers come from that, to kind of like be able to, if you have a lot of pieces and they kind of look the same, and you're trying to find a piece that matches this, for example, right? And these just happen to match. And your brain is telling you, well, they don't match. They're different sizes. The markers is supposed to tell you, well, actually, they should. This has been scaled down. So it's kind of like an information type of thing. It applies both for the groups as well as the thing. There's a bit of a visual artifact here. This is not in the quest. It's only in the editor, because the way the editor calculates the distances are different to the way it's done in the quest. And this has been optimized, obviously, for the actual quest. So you can ignore the visual artifact. One of the challenges.
It looks fine to us, by the way.
Oh, it does. Okay, good. One of the challenges that the visual artifact is really puzzling. I actually contacted one of my friends in Epic Games, and they didn't know either. So one of the challenges for us was we want to have the artifacts there and in a way that it communicates what it is and what it does, but we didn't want it to be too visible, because if you have like 20 of them, it's going to be annoying. And that's why only when you hover over them or you point at them does it show the arrows, which is supposed to help you understand, okay, this is going to scale up. So far, we haven't had any negative feedback. I have seen people have like 20 of them or 50 of them in the shelf, and it does look a bit busy. So far, no one has been complaining about that per se. But eventually in the future, if we do find that some people just do not want to, it's really hard not to puzzle when you see the supposed to showcase a demo. yeah, if people have an issue with that, we could potentially add that as a setting as well, to kind of avoid annoying people that don't need that feature per se. So yeah, that's kind of the repacker. Yeah, the reason why there are 4 is because sometimes a piece of it is hidden if you rotate it like differently, and they want to make sure that you always see basically the icons themselves.
By the way, I hope people do know that you can, as you're building a puzzle, the massive connected piece, you can push back to the shelf and it'll get scaled down to the size of a small piece. That's what these markers are for. I know we've had to sort of explain that to people. Oh, you can even puzzle within the group like that.
You can. I spent a lot of time to make sure that's possible.
Was it just crashing?
that wasn't easy at all. There's like, beyond this super simple system, there's a lot of like ownership and locking system and what's going on. That wasn't easy, but it's worth it. I do always puzzle on top, and interesting enough, the smaller these things get, the easier it is for me to realize the connection they have between each other. The more the size difference, the more brutal or aggressive is the condition checking whether 2 pieces match or not. So at some point, it's going to be pretty much impossible to connect these. Like, I don't know if I can do that. Like, that goes there. I know that goes there, but yeah, at some point that the condition needs to be just so exactly right that they just take it out and they put it there.
See, that can be an achievement to like puzzle within a group. Just finish the
the
puzzle.
entire 400-piece puzzle.
Yeah, just the difficulty variant.
Yeah. So those are the main things that was in that update.
The other couple of things are the new sound effects for color picker and the home button, and the new tabs animation, which you sort of already covered.
Yeah, the tab animation already covered. The color picker, there is always like, I like to see our development like this. There is the feature before our sound guy has touched it, and this feature after the sound guy has touched it, because Pierre-Marie doesn't always an incredible job of giving the things live, and also his feedback changes the thing itself. So you probably can't hear it in the speakers because Discord has canceling, but yeah, now it brings you some sort of sound in discrete steps. And also the vibration is now in discrete steps, which is very nice.
Yeah,
and
you can hear you can hear just a little bit of like the clicking as you're moving it around.
Yeah, and these all have done new sounds. Yeah.
How do you guys like these colors, by the way? The whole this whole color picker. This was a big thing that people wanted to have with the beta that we finally have. Does anyone use it?
Yeah, it's kind of like a pro tip there. If you're puzzling a very dark location, do set the background to be very dark, because your eyes adjust to the darker background and you can see more details on a texture. So if you're doing the insides of the Armenian churches and they're a bit dark, you can set the background dark. You can set it as dark as you want, of course. Like there's no limit there. I did put a limit there in terms of aesthetic, but you can do whatever you want. So exactly. So that's the styler. So what was next, Azad?
Home button, color picker. I guess
the color picker is done.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The home button now also has a sound. I really like the sound. I kind of wished it was there from the beginning, or now it's on the other part. Let me see. Maybe we add that to the going back with the button too. Excuse me. And then another thing that we also added, which I wanted to do forever, is when you press exit now, it fades out the sound, which was a giant thing. No one thought it's going to be so much effort, but it would crash the game and multi-threading, and at some point it was done, and I'm happy about that. So the last 2 bugs that are kind of fixed, which I'm really happy about. One is if you hold your hand still, you can always see the end of the tail of your ray. This wasn't working. This wasn't as intended. It was supposed to work, but it didn't. We are going to improve this with coming releases to kind of try to eliminate the point of a half press, because the half press is going to remain there as like a pro option. But the people who are just starting with the game, they're very confused with the half press, and we have to see what we can do there. Beside that, also even more obvious, if you're holding a piece, that marker is going to be there to help you kind of push things back.
This was something people wanted. Yeah, like an easier way to aim the pushback to where you want it to specifically go to.
This was actually supposed to be again in the release game. No one noticed that for a very tiny reason it wasn't actually there, but it's now back. Other than that, there were some bugs in the background with a see-through, which had a giant memory leak. Really happy that's it solved. The main thing though is if you hold a piece, like in the previous version, if you hold a piece in your hand and you go back to the menu and let go exactly on that frame where you went back, it will corrupt the save game. And well, this is a single tap thing, but if you have several taps, it will go way back somewhere there in the background, which is where I actually put the pieces that are not on the tab. I never thought that's going to be an issue. I thought I'm just going to put it somewhere up there and turn them invisible. But turns out it became a problem, and people couldn't reach it. And that was like probably the worst bug we had. So that's now fixed. I'm really happy about that. Regarding that, maybe I can also showcase, because I'm pretty much done with the updates. We'll just showcase, you go out, and the sound fades out. Beautiful. Now I have markers everywhere. So the regarding the future updates and bug fixes, one of the things that we realized is we need to have a faster way of updating like bugs that are breaking the games, because we fixed this bug pretty early on, but for a long time we couldn't actually push the update because of the way we had our development set up. We had already new features in there which weren't ready for an update. So that's the part one. The other part is because all these new features were added, even if we turn them off or try to turn them off, you never know how a certain piece of code is breaking another piece of code. And since we don't have QA from the store anymore, we can just push updates that break the game. We need to do a lot of user testing until we were sure we are not making the game worse by pushing simple changes. Going on in the future, we are going to have a different setup where we are going to have a different branch for really fast fixes. So in case a bug pops up that's breaking the game and we find a bug on that day, we could potentially do hot fixes. And that should be able to take away a lot of the frustrations. Just to give a bit of a background though, it's like if you see a certain update cadence from us, chances are a lot of that is user testing, because again, we really care about the polish of the application. We always like cut down features and try to remain minimalistic so that we can be really polished. And since that's always really important for us, that's not going to change for the coming updates. And that means the updates are going to be way slower than what they could be if we just push whatever we are developing, which we can't do anymore because they're now in store. We weren't even doing that much back in the days in the beta, but now even less. So yeah, that's it from my side.
Yeah, there's a few other bugs that we sort of fixed. Let's see. The top one that I can talk about is the compatibility with the Patreon puzzles. All the Patreon puzzles were working. However, there was two small things that we can kind of show that were an issue. I'll share my screen again, and we can take a look at that if people want to see. So the main issue with the Patreon puzzles was the fact that the shelf was different. Actually, the shelf in the beta was like much taller. The pieces, would go higher, and then their spacings were different, and they were also slightly closer to you. So now when we redesigned the shelf, they were essentially like part of a new architectural like shelf, and so the pieces didn't sort of transfer. So this was something that was fixed, and now when you just load up your Patreon puzzles and just transfer them, that should all work. The second thing were this was pretty funny. The reference photos were like in some of them were tiny, like literally you can see how small reference photos were. The way you had to fix it is you had to pull it up to your hand and then push it back, and then it would fix it to the proper size. So now that's also fixed. So now we're giving you all the green light essentially to pull the Patreon puzzles that you had from your beta, put them into the full game, as well as their save game files, and things should work out. The only things that, of course, will not transfer are the sort of special event puzzles that we did, the Halloween and the Christmas specials that we did, just because those are just built in a different game, built in a different architecture. And so if you want to re-experience exactly how those were, keep the beta app on your Quest and you'll be able to play them. We just can't put the time to actually recreate that. And of course, we want to do more special things in the future. So I don't think that's going to go away. But yeah, the Patreon puzzles should all work with your save game. So go ahead and push them. What we haven't had time to do this week is helping people download all the puzzles that are on Patreon. I know that's been a request that people have had. Um, so that's something I'm still working on, and perhaps for next week we'll be able to have like a spreadsheet where there's download links that on your computer you can easily sort of download the puzzles that you have access to. Remain as a Patreon. Don't leave. We're not charging anyone to be like an active patron, so don't think that you have to pay. So just remain as a patron. As we work through this, we'll give everyone a heads up before we shut it down. But yeah, I know people are still asking us like, hey, can we join the Patreon? It's like, no, it's discontinued. We can't, like, we don't want to continue that. We want people to have access to the puzzles that they paid for. When the Patreon was happening, we want to help people download them and play them if they like. But we're moving forward. We have more content coming out on puzzling places, the full game, and that's what we're going to focus on from now on. Rimple Stolschen is asking, do I have to reinstall the Patreon puzzles and the save games, or is it still fixed in the patch? You have to, Rimple Stolsch. I'm just gonna say Rimp. We have a transfer instructions that you can just grab the files from your beta app and put them into the full game. Take a look in support, or I can also put it here. Put the link there. So yeah, you just have to transfer them. That's all. It's not very difficult. It's not streamlined, of course, because that's just how it is. We never said, the whole point of the Patreon puzzles was that they were going to be test puzzles that for us to work with. They were never going to be included into the full game. However, we might re-release some of them. That's something that we're still figuring out. At least a few of them that we really like. But yeah, for the most part, the Patreon puzzles were what they were. They were just a very timely sort of thing. And if you have them, consider yourself a lucky person because you get to have certain sort of special things that most other Patreon puzzling places players do not have. So yeah, you tip of the hat to you for being an early adapter. That's definitely a cool collectible to have. um, Anything else we should sort of? I guess there's maybe a few other bugs we can kind of go through. Let's see, the out of reach puzzles that you talked about. Hands turning opaque after accessing the Oculus menu in game and resuming the game. This is also fixed now, so you can, if you're casting your screen or recording your puzzle gameplay, your hands are now they don't turn opaque; they remain see through. Um, Shaw, fun fact: you were like, my understanding of the word opaque was completely the opposite. I remember we were talking about this when I was like, wait, I thought opaque meant see through, but in fact, it was not.
The advantages of being into graphics.
Yeah.
Before you learn the rest of the language English, you're going to learn about transparency and opaque.
Exactly. The chorus audio in the Gerard Monastery puzzle is now tied to puzzle progression instead of starting playing from the start. This is also sort of talks about now the fact that we can update individual puzzles without needing for you to re-download them. This is like such a massive update, like a capability we have for the game. Because remember with the Patreon puzzles, like sometimes there would be a bug in there, and we would have to have people re-download them and reinstall them. Now that's all handled through Oculus, and it just happens.
So yeah, I mean, the Oculus would have still download it again, but it would happen automatically. You don't have to do anything, and it doesn't do anything with the rest of the puzzles, only that specific puzzle. The Gerard one was a bug in case anyone went insane like I did. I played the 400 piece in one go in like 3 hours, and every 40 seconds, 30 seconds, the chorus would start to sing. So that has been fixed now. In case that bothered anyone, I'm happy about that too. The cost suffering.
I'm understanding RIMP what you meant by the things. I don't think you need to reinstall them. You can probably just run them again in Patreon in the new app, and if not, then I don't know, restart. If all else fails, just restart the puzzle and you'll be okay. Hopefully, you're not at the end, but yeah. Yeah, the audio is fixed there. The invisible ray when holding a piece and attempting to push back. You just talked about that, so that's been fixed. The see-through bug, that's also fixed. And quitting the game. Oh, you could indefinitely delay the game from quitting by just sort of pressing, and as the fading animation was happening, you could press it again. It would happen again and again and again. So funny little things that not even Oculus QA caught. So thanks. Yeah, thank you actually for all the players here that have helped us find bugs, have been reporting things. It just helps make the game better, and so that's always really exciting. Um, so yeah, if you have any questions, yeah, we're at the end of our update. If you have any questions, we're happy to answer them. Go ahead and type them into the event chat and QA channel. Rimp, I'm gonna say your name, Rimple Stalchen. Hopefully that's close.
Rumpelstiltskin.
Is it German? I don't know.
I
Could
don't know, but Shen does sound German, so
yeah.
Rumpelstiltskin.
There's a dog in the photo, so I think it is.
I
That's probably
think that's
correct. Do you have a time?
German Austria.
Do you? Yeah. So he asks, do you have a time frame for when we can expect more puzzles, if it's not a big secret? What's our time frame? I mean, it's an.
Uh, Also, another classic thing. I don't even know if it's a big secret or not because we never had time to have a meeting around it.
Yeah, we haven't announced it. We have a time frame idea. It's over the next couple of weeks. Let's just put it
Yeah,
there. Like in the
it's
next.
not. It's not. It's not far off. It's
Yeah.
not far off. So it's gonna be soon.
Yeah, 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, something like that. It's not going to be. Are we in October yet? Yeah, we are. Today's the first. Nice, 1st of October. It will happen this month. We'll put it there. And in terms of next DLCs, once we have the first one out, maybe we can talk about more of the other ones. But yeah, that'll certainly be one.
Regarding the hand tracking, I would start with the question there.
Yeah, Grail X3 asks.
Yeah, is hand tracking a coming feature? Uh, I, well, I mean, I would love to not have to have the controller in my hand all the time because it's always hard to find them again when you like leave them around, and they also weigh something. We did test it very shortly just after it came out, and the feedbacks weren't great. Like it wasn't reliable enough at the time. At the time, it was like very early alpha. So we are going to test it again at some point. Again, looking at the roadmap, we always like assess what we think is the most important thing to work on at the moment. Hand tracking is already there as something to look into. If we can get it to work with the level of polish that we have in the rest of the game, of course, we're going to put an effort in and push it online. One thing I can say is from the type of design we have been doing, I have already kind of, we have already tried our best to make sure that you can play the game with a single button. And that's going to be very helpful with the hand tracking. Because we have like go back to menu, we have a button for that. So we don't have to implement some complicated gesture. The only thing that's kind of stopping a very easy implementation at the moment is push back to the menu, because you would have to come up with some sort of gesture for that. We will see in the future, but the goal would be to have a hand tracking that's extremely simple to use so that anyone can just intuitively use it without having to memorize any type of a specific gestures.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm trying to imagine how, like, the pulling, I guess, makes sense. You can maybe go like this and it'll pull. The pushing, it's like some Jedi mind tricks that you have to do.
Yeah. Did I say pulling? I meant pushing. Yeah, pushing.
Pushing. No, you said it right.
Okay.
Grumpy says you can throw it, maybe, but
Yeah, we actually have code lying around, like very old code with a controller we did prototype throwing. It just wasn't reliable again. Like the first thing I would probably implement or try is like having some button or something on the back of your other hand. So you would have two hands to, you would need two hands to kind of like push back. But that's also not great because accessibility wise, I would like to have it so that you can just do it with a single hand. So we have to see what works and doesn't.
yeah, no, it really has to be thoroughly tested, because that was one of the things, like our prime design sort of guiding principles was it has to be so simple that you can throw anyone in there without having any VR experience and they can play it. And that's really helped us from the start, is to keep that simplicity in the game. And we see a lot of people being like, oh, my grandmother, my grandfather, like I just put them in the VR and they can immediately play the game. Maybe with hand tracking, that can, like, intuitively you can think of that being easier, but it also can be the opposite, because I don't know, it's not like real life. You can't just, doesn't work exactly the same. So we have to try.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Grail X3 asks the most, what is it? The infamous question about resizing the puzzles. I think we should have.
So, I mean, before we go in, let's go in the order. There's a question before.
Sure.
So regarding the magnifying
Oh,
glass, so the
Dufco, I'm
question is,
sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. Also, so the question is if there will ever be a magnifying glass, because it's hard to see the things from far away. So I suspect there is a bug in the engine that makes it a bit blurrier than it should be. I haven't found it. Like every 2-3 months, I put aside a day where I just look through it, try to find out what's going on. I still haven't found it. The reason why I think there is a bug is some people put it on super resolution, and when they put it on super resolution, things become sharper, and that should actually not happen if things are rendering correctly. So that's something that we are going to look into, or inside joke is probably going to be, we say, an Ayub task, which is one of my colleagues who likes digging into the engine a lot. So that's going to be the thing. Regarding the, let's say, magnifying glass, that was one of our earliest ideas. I think in PC, I might have even prototyped it. I don't remember. The main issue is performance because you have to render the scene again. Or if you can find a way not to render the thing again, but it would still be more expensive than what the Quest can do. The other thing is we do have, on let's say a 400-piece puzzle, we are reaching a limit of not photogrammetry can do. Photogrammetry can do way more what the Quest 2 can carry in terms of texture sizes. So, and that would kind of lead also to the next question. So my hope is that if we ever fix the actual bug, that would get rid of the problem. If it doesn't, we would have to reevaluate again what are the things we can try.
Yeah. By the way, let's make sure to also read the question itself, so people in YouTube after watching
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Where are we on? Is it GrayLX3's?
Yeah.
Yeah. GrayLX3 asked on Twitter for a while ago about resizing the puzzle so that you can stand within the puzzle. Is that something we're thinking about doing? We talked a little bit at length about this on the Upload VR podcast. If people are interested to sort of dive into it there, but where are we on that, Shaw?
So we have a meeting around that, I think, every 3 months. One, because a lot of people ask for it constantly, and B, also internally we have different opinions on what would be best for the game. So there are different things around that. The first one is performance, right? So if you make things bigger and don't improve quality, that's going to reduce the polish of the app, because these models do not look as good as you think they would when they scale up. They look very different, and different people have different tolerance towards that, right? Some people wouldn't mind it at all, especially like in our team, we are very used to PG looking and stuff. We have been working in photogrammetry for a very long time, and for us it would just look like a photogrammetry model with low resolution, and that's fine. Whereas for certain people who are also our audience, it would be very off-putting, and so that's one of the main reasons. We cannot guarantee the same level of visual quality once scaling up. The other thing is, even if we could guarantee from the performance side, not every photogrammetry model we use puzzles have that. So we can't have it as a general solution to a specific problem, because some objects just inherently cannot have that, something like an object or the kimono, and other objects, let's say certain castles or whatever, might not even be available in high resolution at the time of capture. And not every location is easy to recapture. Some locations are need a lot of permissions and whatnot. So that's the second thing. We can't use it for every location. It needs to be very specific to a specific location. Our stand on that was, at some point, we would then probably try with a location we know we can have a good quality on to see what we can do with it. So that was the other thing, but as a test, still not really sure it's going to make it to the game or not. Because the other part is, it is a very cool thing that people imagine it to be really cool. And I tried it. It was in the initial prototype we had, by the way, back in the days in Unity. You could scale it indefinitely, like during the puzzle as well. And it did several things. It broke the game feel and the Zen thing going on because of the entire movement. At the same time, it broke the illusion of the dollhouse. You know, the illusion, like basically your brain interprets detail there that's not there, right? You see like a bit of thing, and then you're like, oh, I bet there is this there, and it kind of completely breaks that illusion. So it wasn't a very nice feeling. And we do have an app out there. It's called Realities. On Steam, you can have a look. It was back in 2016, I think, with like top level quality photogrammetry. Like there you can see with that level going around these environments is definitely interesting, but even there, it doesn't create the level of engagement that people think it does.
I'm
So these
playing
are
it on
just
this.
one of the,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, as that is showing right now on the thing. So a lot of our learnings, so this is a very big topic for us. Our learnings regarding this topic is not even just puzzling places. Also having tried this in puzzling places, but also Realities app itself and the many user testing we have done. And I can't really do the topic justice within like 10 minutes because it's massive. Every time we talk about it, it goes
Yeah.
on for a very long time. But this is kind of like some of the many reasons why this is at the very least not on priority, like, or at the top of our roadmap to even look into or discuss at the moment.
Yeah, I have to say our team is also torn on this. Like, there's people like myself. Like, I think I would want to see it in full scale. Some people are like, it's not worth it. So it again for things that we have to prioritize. We have to prioritize pretty much everything we work on. And if there's not a clear direction about something, and we don't have a consensus on an idea, it's very hard for us to just dedicate actual development time for that versus something that we're like, okay, this is a real need, and we it'll make the game better because of X, Y, and Z. So we're not saying it's completely out of the cards, but it's just something we have to still sort of work on, prototype, and as we get ourselves out of the sort of launch phase, the initial, like, okay, make sure everything is working as well as it can, get the first couple of DLCs out or something. I think then we'll have a little bit more time to start experimenting with some of the ideas that we have, with some of the things that we want to do more of. So yeah, if you have these ideas, we'd love to still keep hearing them. Like, let us know in the suggestions. It also helps understand, is this an idea that only one person has, or is this something that like really the community wants? So that really helps us gauge also the interests, and helps prioritize certain things. So if you want something, don't be afraid of keep asking or talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I'll definitely do that.
cool.
So
Um,
next question: would it be possible to make the pictures as like almost in real life? So you have to build your surroundings around you. So you have to get also a possibility to go up and down. I'm not sure I understand the question correctly. You mean the reference images being really large?
must be. This is
Yeah, I mean,
Grumpy's.
no. Blin Zella.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, again, our main limitation right now is performance. Like, if something is not in the resolution it's supposed to be, it's either because there's a bug there or because we have hit a certain limit of performance or memory. Because the puzzles are already very large as it is. Moving forward, we might be able to, let's say, have a smaller puzzle sizes if we manage to change and operate the Unreal Engine, and if they do support, let's say, certain schemes of compression for images, we could then have more images in each pack. But that's not the case right now, and the pack files would go in gigabyte really fast. Like from realities there on this thing, without compression, a simple DLC in realities would be like 68 gigabyte. And I don't think anyone wants to download that. So in the future, these things might change again, because if these compression schemes are there, we have more, let's say, headroom for making larger images. And but then the question of performance still remains. Futures of headsets, we will see, like, hopefully we can render higher and higher resolutions, but the data is there. It's just very limited by performance and memory.
Um,
But,
Next
yeah, go
question by Grumpy. Info cards about the locations. Is that something that we can have in app? More context about the locations. I think the answer there is, I mean, I guess we can. Part of what we're hesitating on is that it is a little limiting to just have it in VR. That's why we also use the blog posts where we can kind of elaborate, have links in there, have photos and videos, and it not be really limited to VR. But the really, like, a big limitation for us that we're worried about is we're localizing the game. I guess we haven't really announced that, but like, we want the game to be the game is going to be in multiple languages. Um, and so every piece of text we add in the game has to be translated into 4, 5, 6 different languages. And for some things, I mean, for the game UI, like we worked on that, and now it is translated, and we're working on the localization. But when it comes to like for each puzzle having its own, let's say, Wikipedia entry, that's very difficult to translate. So yeah, I don't know if we'll have that in the near future. Like I can't imagine that working. But
So a tiny info there is not just that we want to translate it; we are contractually obligated to translate them.
yeah,
So that means the languages. It's not just the information. It's also for things like tutorials. You always think, oh, a certain text that would have been so easy, but we have to go around and explain it in shapes and forms because we don't want to use text due to translation issue. One thing we can prototype in the future, and I think that's something that was just also mentioned, that if it works nice, we would like to be able to link to external information. That can be either our own blog post, a Wikipedia page, maybe a Google Maps coordinate, whatever, where people can just go and get to know more about the locations. Because it's not just for you guys, for us also, after puzzling, you do want to know more about the locations. You have got to know these locations. So in such an intimate way, it's understandable that more information would be needed. And for the coming DLCs, I'm already planning it with Azad, or one of the locations. I'm not going to tease it, but which I had some involvement in. I would love to do like a mini podcast about it, or maybe a chat here to kind of talk about how these locations are interrelated and the history of them. And I think that would be like a chance to prototype and see how many people are actually interested in something like that. So like the other aspects of the game, we are going to iterate on this, right? So we have the base assumption that people will be interested in this. We have to ask ourselves how many people, how much value does it create for them, and put that in our roadmap and see how much time we can dedicate to it, depending on how valuable it is for the people.
yeah. One thing we're thinking about doing is, as we have more of these live events here, is we can actually share more information about how these places are captured, what they look like. Especially if it's us capturing it, we'll have videos that we can share. We have it for quite a few of them already. So yeah, I mean, this could be a fun live behind the scenes thing that for people that want to know more about it. So that's as far as we can kind of talk about for now. Let's. By the way, I think we should cap today's event at the end of the hour. So get your questions in. I can't promise that we'll get through all of them. So the next question is also from the variation of Rumpelstiltskin. He did confirm that he's German, by the way. Um, I don't think it's possible, but for example, a cooperation with the Wander app. And this is also similar to someone else asked if we had seen the Brink XR app, which is a photogrammetry app. So the Wander app, as far as I remember, is a Google Street View, like photosphere experience, right? Shah, have you tried it before?
No, I haven't. I haven't.
Yeah, maybe I'll pull it up as
Fascinating
well.
with it.
Wander VR. And yeah, as long, I mean,
I wonder if
it would only work for photogrammetry, like which means a 3D model or Google Maps itself. As we can see here, this is Google Street View that you're exploring, and none of this is actually, let's say, a 3D model that you can use. So it wouldn't work with Wander. However, with Brink XR, which is a 3D scanning, VR virtual tourism app, very similar to what we had with Realities. Yeah, that's certainly possible. In fact, like I don't know, but it's certainly in the realm of possibilities. It would be really interesting for us to maybe do like a crossover, VR crossover app between Brinks and Puzzling Places, and perhaps with other photogrammetry VR apps. Yeah, it could be cool that these apps that in VR, you could actually puzzle those places in our game. So yeah, that's certainly an option. And we would be willing to explore that.
Yeah.
What's next, Shaw?
So from Blind Zelda regarding the upper shelf not being really visible. One of the easiest thing that we can do, that's not too hard to do, is to have a variation of the shelf that only has the central area, an area which is more comfortable to look at, and then more tabs. So something like that, it's very easy to do. Regarding the other solutions, the one I talked about and scaling and whatnot, they do require a lot of going back and forth. But I would then keep that in mind. What you just said, I heard that from someone else too, that the upper level was an issue, and maybe potentially there is a quicker fix that we can put in between until we get there, so that you can have a better playing experience. Then you don't have to pull it one by one.
Yeah. I lost our place, so maybe go with the next question.
So multiplayer. Um, so we don't have much information there at the moment, or much information we can share.
But we have talked about it. I guess we talked about it on upload a bit, yeah, at the end.
So this is one of the areas where I think, and everyone in the team agrees, would bring a lot of, let's say, levels, like depth to the game, because multiplayer, we have prototyped it internally and we tested it way back in the days, like in a very rough format, right? So it's not nothing we can release just tomorrow, but it's very rough format. We have prototyped it like ages ago. It's a completely different game. Like I remember playing then with Azad a train, and then he just took the train and ran away, making train noises. That was hilarious. Like it's a it's a completely different game, and however, we do not have any estimated time regarding that, because we have changed the code base a lot since then. None of these changes have been kind of applied for multiplayer, so we can't even play multiplayer ourselves at the moment until we have fixed those changes. And afterwards, there is the giant question of design, right? So very simple thing. It's like it's very hard to describe as a developer of the game how complicated simple solutions or simple problem, how complicated they actually are. Because for multiplayer, for example, our shelf system wouldn't work as it is right now, because people would be standing in completely different orientation, and there is no such a thing as a global forward. Not everyone would be facing the same direction. So we would have to completely rethink our environment, the stones, the reeds, the directionality of the environment, for the favor of something more, let's say, omnidirectional. So that's the part one. The part two is it's completely different feel. It's a different game feel. We refer to it as a beachy sand game feel internally, because it kind of feels like very fun and kind of like, it's very engaging. And we would have to change the colors. We would have to do so. That's why I don't really have any estimated time for it. I can just say that in the list of things to try, multiplayer is very high up there. After some of the features, for example, we discussed here, because again, it brings with a minimum amount of work, the maximum amount of advantages.
Yeah, it's like the TLDR on it is, yeah, we're absolutely interested. We think it'll be great. It just will require quite a lot of work to get it right. And so, yeah, we don't have a time estimate, but it's definitely something we want to have. Yeah, man, we had I guess we can sort of talk about it here. We had like a 5 or 6 person multiplayer session with the team, and that was so hectic. We had so fun. And I don't know if we would ever ship with like that many people puzzling together, because it's just, it is a little hectic, but it was, I don't know, we puzzled like a 200 piece thing in like 15 minutes. Well, like it felt like Minecraft, like people are like world building puzzles in different parts of the environment, bringing it together. One thing that was, I remember, was like, we were working on Gerard Monastery, and I think it was Marcel, one of the engineers, and I were like, we stuck our heads on the inside of the monastery, and we were like puzzling, and it was just like so interesting seeing each other and like inside. It just felt very like intimate and everything. So it also opens up the question of like, who would you puzzle with? Is it going to be just an open matchmaking thing, or is it just with friends? So, these are the sort of design questions that aren't even like UI or visuals. It's like, how do we create an experience that's not like you're not going to get griefed by players that ruin the experience for you? So, yeah, we have to work on these things. They will take time. The Grumpy asks, how about adjustable numbers of rows on shelves, like rows and columns? I guess that's also a design sort of thing. It's like we've built the environment to work with, with the reads.
Yeah, the previous version of Puzzling Places, the one we had in Patreon, was completely adjustable. Everything was kind of like done on the fly. And we kind of had to switch out of that because of art direction, to kind of really fine tune things to visually have a certain rhythm. Because we can't really control the rhythm all that well, visually at least, with like a numeric type of placement. However, again, accessibility is one of our main thing. We do want to, like, for everyone to be able to enjoy this game, regardless of whatever scenario. And I have taken the feedback, and I have it there, and we'll think about what we can do regarding the upper shelves, like whatever we can implement. I'm still not sure what would be the solution, but yeah.
Dufko says speed puzzle competitions.
I really do that with my sister on 400-piece puzzles. Uh,
Uh, people have
we-
asked people have asked for counters like timers and stuff to know how long it takes the game. I think that's have we put out a statement? Not statement. Have we like come up with a thing there? Because I think we do want to have some sort of a counter, but we just haven't decided
in
where
the
that would go.
in the original design, we didn't include it because we didn't want the primary feel of the game to be competitive. So Puzzle in Places is a very internal, at least the version we have right now, it's a very internal solo individual experience.
Yeah.
And the thought behind it is a lot of the VR experiences are very lonely. As in, I put the headset on and I get lost into it, and I come out of the headset and it's already dark, and it's a very lonely activity a lot of the times. And I don't want the players. So basically, I don't want the players to feel bad after going out of the game. And the entire thing has been designed in a way that it's like a very meditative individual zone that you go into. And a timer would have been kind of a very different type of game feel. However, moving forward, we don't have to have just that one type of game feel. That's just the one we wanted to ship with. That's the one we want to sell this mechanic with. But depending on the resources and again the priority and the roadmap in the future, we can have different modes where we would then design the game differently, do the colors differently, do the forms differently, how the rhythm of things are placed. So there's a lot of design going behind all these things. That's why it's a lot of work, but where we have an eye open for those.
Okay, last few questions before we let you all go. Anything left? Is there a possibility to add option for more randomly rotated pieces on the shelf? This keeps coming up also, yeah, about the orientation of the pieces. Currently, all the pieces are oriented upright, right, Shaw?
Yeah. So in the way back in the days in the Unity prototype, I extra had a line of code there to rotate it. It was brutal. Like puzzle, like even 100-piece puzzles were really difficult. Like you would think you would know which way a wall goes, but it's very difficult. And at the time, I don't think I could have imagined how high the interest of the players are in like self-inflicted pain. I say that as a joke, but I'm still surprised that anyone finished the Frozen Creek. That one was just so difficult for me. So there is a type of player that would love that, I think, to have this extra challenge. Yeah, exactly, like an expert level of some sort. And I think in the future we are going to add that. And it's actually not much work. Like the most amount of work actually is to redo the design of the UI so that there is more space for more settings.
Right.
But other than that, the actual code of it is not very difficult, and that would be a very simple way of adding, let's say, more difficulty or more depth for the type of player who enjoy that type of difficulty. And concerning that, another one is then removing the tabs, which is another thing that we are going to prototype. And if we can manage to get it in a way that's performant and works in both Quest 1 and 2, we would add that as an option. You can turn on off in real time, depending on if you want help with the tabs, the indentation of the puzzle pieces or not.
Yeah. The I completely forgot what I was going to say. Never mind. Oh yeah, we are redesigning the menu because and we'll probably the settings will have redesigned there, but we have to redesign it to be able to like have many more puzzles in there without it getting too cluttered and just having a long list of puzzles to scroll through. So this is all coming. Puzzle in Places is like the start of it all. This was just a launch, and we're just going to have quite a long tail after this of features and design. So hopefully, yeah, hopefully y'all have liked being on this journey with us. We're really happy to be here, really happy to have you all listen to us talk about this. If you're interested in more, yeah, please let us know. Like, should we do more of these events? I think Shah, you and I, like, this has been fun for us.
Yeah.
Hopefully, yeah, it's been fun for you. Yeah, thank you all. Before you leave, let's take a photo. I'm going to take a screen grab of everyone. So let me, well, I guess people can't put their photos up, but we'll just take a screen grab of everyone's thing. So 3, 2, 1. Just smile. Smile in your own sort of, in your own space without a webcam. Hopefully that worked. And yep, it did. Great. All right. Thank you all again. And we'll have more to talk about with the DLCs soon. So, yeah, happy puzzling.